This morning's reading comes from the book of Matthew. You can find it on page 898 of your pew Bibles if you wish to follow along. Chapter 20, verse 24. When the 10 heard it, they were angry with the two brothers. But Jesus called them to him and said, "You know that the rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them, and their great ones are tyrants over them. It will not be so among you, but whoever wishes to be great among you must be your servant, and whoever wishes to be first among you must be your slave. Just as the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many." The word of the Lord.
When did the term doctor get treated with such reverence as, "Oh, right this way, Dr. Smith," or "Excuse me, Dr. Scholes, what wonderful foot pads," or "Pardon me, Dr. Patterson, but your flatulence has no odor"? At what point in history did a doctor become more than a trusted and learned friend who visited and treated the ill? Now, you ask me if I've been practicing medicine. Well, if this means opening your door to those in need, those in pain, caring for them, listening to them, applying a cold cloth until a fever breaks, if this is practicing medicine, if this is treating a patient, then I am guilty as charged, sir.
Did you consider the ramifications of your actions? What if one of your patients had died?
What's wrong with death, sir? What are we so mortally afraid of? Why can't we treat death with a certain amount of humanity and dignity and decency and, God forbid, maybe even humor? Death is not the enemy, gentlemen. If we're going to fight a disease, let's fight one of the most terrible diseases of all, indifference. Now, I've sat in your schools and heard people lecture on transference and professional distance. Transference is inevitable, sir. Every human being has an impact on another. Why don't we want that in a patient-doctor relationship? That's why I've listened to your teachings and I believe they're wrong. A doctor's mission should be not just to prevent death, but also to improve the quality of life. That's why you treat a disease, you win, you lose. You treat a person, I guarantee you'll win, no matter what the outcome. Now here today, this room is full of medical students. Don't let them anesthetize you. Don't let them numb you out to the miracle of life. Always live in awe of the glorious mechanism of the human body. Let that be the focus of your studies and not a quest for grades, which will give you no idea what kind of doctor you will become.
Mr. Adams, please turn and
don't
address the
wait till
board.
you're on the ward to get your humanity back. Start your interviewing skills now. Start talking to strangers. Talk to your friends. Talk to wrong numbers. Talk to everyone.
Mr. Adams.
And cultivate friendships with those amazing people standing in the back of the room. Nurses, they can teach you. They've been with people every day. They wade through blood. They have a wealth of knowledge to share with you, and so do the professors you respect, the ones who are not dead from the heart up. Share their compassion. Let that be contagious.
Mr. Adams, I demand that you turn and address the board.
Sir, I want to be a doctor with all my heart. I wanted to become a doctor so I could serve others. And because of that, I've lost everything. But I've also gained everything. I've shared the lives of patients and staff members at the hospital. I've laughed with them. I've cried with them. This is what I want to do with my life. And as God is my witness, no matter what your decision today, sir, I will still become the best damn doctor the world has ever seen.
So a little reminiscent of Martin Luther standing in front of an Inquisition saying, "This is what I believe, this is what I think." Today is Reformation Sunday, as well as Confirmation Sunday. And I won't talk very long, actually, today, because during the offering, we have a little bit of a longer video for the youth of our church to share what they believe. But I do have a few words I want to share. If we go on the next slide. When I was starting out in ministry quite a few years ago, I started out in Las Vegas, Nevada. I was the full-time youth guy. And as soon as I showed up, I was put to task on Wednesday mornings, every Wednesday morning. You see, attached to the church was a preschool, and every Wednesday morning, the senior pastor, Pastor Ray Christensen, had a habit, had a ritual, had it on his schedule to go to each classroom of the preschool and sing to the kids. Sunday school songs, vacation Bible school songs, right? Just that kind of stuff. We'd go and we'd sing to each classroom, and the kids just loved it. And so since I was the stereotypical youth minister with the guitar strapped to my back, he said, you're going to come sing with me. All right, Pastor Ray, I'll do whatever you say. You're my boss now, so that's what's going to happen. That's what I did. Every Wednesday morning, we would go and we'd sing to the kids, and it looked just like this, really. This isn't the class, but I found this picture on the internet. And I was, like I said, I was the guitarist, so I would sit down in those, the small preschool, kindergarten kind of chairs, right? Those really short ones. So you'd sit way down on those things. I'd pull out my guitar, and Pastor Ray would sing, and I'd play my guitar and sing. And there was this other ritual that happened. When Pastor Ray was done, all the kids just loved to give him a big hug afterwards. And so we'd sing 2, 3, 4 songs, and the kids would give us a hug, and they started hugging me too. And since I was the younger, cooler, right, guitar-playing youth minister, they started attacking me for hugs before they went to Pastor Ray. That's, he was older. What can I say? No, I'm teasing. But that's what they did. So it got to a point when the kids were so excited to give us hugs afterwards, that was like one of their favorite points, where while I'm sitting there with my guitar, I had to hand my guitar back to one of the teachers of the classroom just because they kind of attacked us so quickly. And you can imagine, right? There's all these kids, and there's 2 and 3 years old, and they're pulling on you, and they're hugging you. One kid kind of hugging you from behind on your neck, and one grabbing your arm, and then grabbing the other arm. And to pause for a second, if you haven't seen me with short sleeves on, I have pretty hairy arms, right? Pretty hairy arms. Some of you maybe more, some less, but this is pretty, pretty furry. And so that's the setup. And kids are hanging and hugging. I've passed my guitar back until I noticed that one kid has my left arm, and he had grabbed, and before I knew it, he had grabbed my arm, and he just went. And so if you can imagine a tube of green toothpaste, and it's riding a good 1/8 inch right over my arm because of it's just disgusting, and I almost lost it. So I know some of you are, seriously, that's exactly, it was one of the most disgusting memories I have, even with having kids and all that, just this, it was gross. But I'll come back to that. Next slide, please. Like I said, this is Confirmation Sunday. And there's a misprint up there. But as Confirmation Sunday, this is a day when we both recognize Martin Luther when he stood in front of a group of people and said, "Here I stand, I can do no other," as Reformation Sunday. And as Confirmation Sunday, we kind of do the same thing, where our youth basically stand up and take responsibility for their faith. But I've had a good 10-year issue. I have a beef with confirmation. And some of you through the call process, you might already know this. I've been here just over a year. I have articles on confirmation that have been printed. I've done some seminars. I've coached pastors and youth directors alike on a philosophy of confirmation. And I even had one of my articles titled, pardon me, but it was titled "Confirmation Sucks." And as you can imagine, I got an awful lot of emails on that title, right? Because there's a lot of things about confirmation I actually really don't like. And so why? Why would I call confirmation that? Why would I have that kind of opinion about confirmation? I think this text that we read today starts to speak to it a little bit. The text that was read today, in the very beginning, 4 verses before that was read, it actually is set up by a mom coming to Jesus. A mom comes to Jesus and talks about the 2 sons of Zebedee, right? Her sons. Next slide. And she says something like this. She says, "Grant that one of these 2 sons of mine may sit at your right and the other at your left in your kingdom." In other words, Jesus, can you promise me that my kids will be with you in heaven? Right? That's what she's saying. What can we do? What can happen? Please promise me that my sons will be with you in heaven. And Jesus doesn't say yes. He doesn't say no. He doesn't tell them what they have to believe. Jesus says something significantly different than what she was expecting. He says this: "Whoever wants to become great among you must be your servant, just as the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve." But to serve. Following Jesus, as we hear time and time again through the Gospels, is not about a statement of faith, but a call to serve. Jesus never says to people, "So what is it that you believe?" and then calls you along. No, Jesus first and foremost says, "Come and follow." Come and follow. Doesn't ask people what they believe. First, come and follow. Often we first seem to focus more on a belief system, a statement of faith, and that often seems to be a lot what confirmation is about, more a statement of faith and less a call to follow. So what's my problem with that? It's pretty basic, actually. Belief systems actually do one of two things, right? First of all, they confuse us in life. I want you to look around. That means actually physically turn around, look at the people next to you, look at the faces. Seriously, look at 6 people you don't know. Look at them in the eye. And now, as you're looking at somebody, ask them if they believe today the exact same thing they believed when they were 15 years old. Right? None of us do. Our belief, our statement of faith, what we believe ebbs and flows through life depending on our life experiences, pain, sorrow, suffering, death, joy, celebrations. Our experience of God is never stable necessarily. It's never stagnant. It doesn't stay in one place. Our belief system ebbs and flows. And so when we teach that this is what I believe, here I stand, I can do and say no other, we think if that changes a year or two from now, then I must be falling away from church. My faith must be gone. So I think first and foremost, a statement of faith, a belief system, first and foremost, confuses, as opposed to teaching that maybe this is a journey that ebbs and flows and moves and is fluid. But second, the other thing I think statements of faith do for us is that they divide us. Right? They divide us because everything is hunky-dory when we say this is what we believe until something comes along to challenge that. And then once we kind of tweak what we believe, we have things like the Reformation. We have things like the ELCA Church, the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod, the Wisconsin Lutheran Church, Presbyterians, Anglican, Episcopalians, Baptists, Southern Baptists, American Baptists, Catholics, you name it. As soon as we start saying this is what I believe, we start being divided. And then when a new issue comes along, we say, well, I don't believe that. We start going to another church or starting another church. Belief systems often have more to do with dividing us than uniting us. As you start looking at each other today, I guarantee you are sitting with someone right now who's going to vote for Donald Trump. And someone else who's going to vote for Bernie Sanders. Don't let our faith statements, our belief systems, separate us and divide us. What unites us, I should say, is not our belief systems, not our statements of faith, but it's Jesus. It's who we follow as Christians that is the most important, not what exactly we believe. Go to the next slide, please. So the question for us on this Reformation Confirmation Sunday, the question for these youth that next service will be standing up, giving exactly that, a faith statement, isn't going to be, what do you believe, but rather, who will you follow? Christianity, actually, I think it's funny that we have so many leadership seminars and leadership books in Christianity when the basic, core, fundamental value of Christianity is following Jesus, not leading much of anything. And in this text, we are told very clearly what it means to follow Jesus. The first question is, who will we follow? The next question is, how do we follow? And following Jesus is all about asking, how will we serve? The Son of Man came to serve and not be served. So we too must serve. This is not a destination faith. This is not a faith where we ask, what must I do? What must I believe in order to get into heaven? That isn't what our faith is about. Our faith is about following Jesus and serving creation first and foremost. Find it interesting in that video that I had played, right? It has this little bit of Reformation to it, right? Patch Adams, it's Robin Williams standing in front of an Inquisition saying, no matter what you think you know, that's not being a doctor. No matter what we think we know isn't what it means to be a Christian. Being a doctor to Patch Adams was serving people, applying a cold cloth, crying, being there to let people cry on your shoulders, serving people, being with people, holding their hand, learning about them. And Christianity is exactly the same. No matter who we know, no matter how much we have it figured out, no matter how clear our statement of faith is, this still is not Christianity. It's about following Jesus, and it's about serving creation. The second thing about serving goes to the story I told. Remember the snot that's right there on my arm right now? Right? Yeah. Right? Serving, getting involved with people, engaging is messy. It's dirty. It's hard. It forces us to step out of our comfort zone, step out of our schedule, step out of our houses, step out of our circles that we're comfortable in, step out of our myopic view of the world, and get dirty with creation, with people to help them where they are at. As hard as it is for public speaking, it's much easier to stand up here and give a statement of faith than it is to step out of our comfort zone and serve people. That's hard. Jesus tells us that it is finished. You are saved. We are forgiven. That's done. That's over. We don't need to worry about that anymore. Now, what does it mean to be a Christian? It's not about what you believe. It's about answering that question, how will you serve? So today, as those confirmands affirm their baptism, us here at this service, as we think about what it means for Martin Luther to stand up and say, "Here I stand," I ask you, not so much what you believe. How will you serve? How will you follow Jesus? Not what you think about Jesus. The rest of the message today will be given by our youth during offering, during a sermon, but today, or in a video, I should say. But as I leave you for this talk, that's my only question. How will you serve? How will you follow Christ in this Reformation season? Let us pray. Creator God, we thank you for who you are. We thank you for forgiveness and love and grace and mercy and acceptance, and we ask that you give us continued assurance that that truly is finished, that that no longer has to be talked about, thought about, or worried about. Help us take away the anxiety that often is given through a destination theology and help us step into journey theology, an experience of you. Help us follow you in your footsteps, expecting not to be served, but only through your example to serve. Give us that kind of courage to live out that kind of faith. In your name we pray. Amen.